Hey guys, this week we're going to talk about the places of the dead, continuing our discussion on death and the afterlife. Um, Little review from last week on kind of what we discussed. We discussed about the time of death and how maybe your life flashes before your eyes. Is there a welcoming party? Is there angels that attend your death to help you in the process? We found scriptural backing to that in Luke chapter 16. We also saw that we're told to remember where our body is laid, our remains are laid to rest, so that we can return on the day of the resurrection when the Lord returns. That's backed up by the Lord's return in 1 Corinthians 15 and the resurrection at the time of the rapture. We talked about the judgment in front of God's throne, the throne room in Revelation, described in Revelation chapter 4, with the cherubim and the 24 elders, and how we're going to come before this and this throne seat, this judgment seat after we die. And if we believe in God's Son, we will have the Holy Spirit advocating for us. And then we will be led to a place known as paradise. If we rejected God's Son, then we will be sentenced to another place where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. So for this week, I want to talk about these places that we briefly mentioned last week. The first one I want to talk about is heaven, right? And the city that's up there, the one that we're all pretty familiar with. The entire chapter of 21 in the book of Revelation is dedicated to this heavenly city that is up there. So I'm going to go ahead and read through it. Verse 1 starts off with, in Revelation chapter 21, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth has disappeared, and the sea was also gone. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. So there is a city up there that John saw in his revelation, up in heaven. He saw at the end that the city comes down from heaven. So this city right now is in heaven. It's known as the Holy City, the New Jerusalem. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. I don't know how much thought you've given to heaven as an actual place and what it maybe looks like. But Revelation 21 describes a city that's up there. So I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think heaven is like? That'll be our first issue for discussion this week. Continuing with this city that's up there, verse 3, John says that he heard a loud shout from the throne saying, look, it's God's home is now among his people. So this city seems to indicate here that this city is where God's at. This is God's home, and he's with his people that are up there. It says he will live with them and they will be his people. God himself will be with them, and he will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. All these things are gone forever. Beautiful picture of what heaven is like. No more death, crying, sorrow, pain. You're with God in his home. Verse 5, and the one sitting on the throne said, look, I am making everything new. And then he said to me, write this down, for what I tell you is trustworthy and true. And he also said, it is finished. I am the Alpha and the Omega, for that before, the beginning and the end. To all who are thirsty, I will give freely from the springs of the water of life. It makes me thirsty. Water. All who are victorious will inherit all these blessings, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. There's that victorious term again that we saw in Revelation 2 and chapter 3. We're promised that we will inherit the blessing of heaven. Verse 8, but, there's always a but, cowards, unbelievers, the corrupt, murderers, the immoral, those who practice witchcraft, idol worshippers, and all liars, their fate is in the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the second death here in this lecture. But when we meet up for the discussion, after we talk about heaven, I want to hear your thoughts on hell. Because you can't talk about heaven without talking about hell. And what do you think hell is like? If heaven is a real place, then that means hell is a real place. And again, it is healthy to talk about it because this is a reality um, that is being faced. So we'll make that our second issue for discussion when we meet up. Verse 9. Then one of the seven angels who held the seven bowls containing the seven last plagues, we'll talk about those in the future, he said to me, "Come with me, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb." And so he took me in the spirit to a great high mountain, and he showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God. So John in this revelation got to see the city in heaven that's up there. He said it shone with the glory of God. It was shining, and it sparkled like a precious stone, like jasper, as clear as crystal. The city wall was broad and high with 12 gates guarded by 12 angels. And the names of the 12 tribes of Israel were written on the gates. There were 3 gates on each side, east, north, south, and west. The wall of the city had 12 foundation stones, and on them were written the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. So here's a kind of a physical description of what this city looks from the outside. It's shiny, it's sparkly, it's clear as crystal. It's got these huge walls, broad and high. It's got 12 gates guarded by 12 angels. Pretty cool, pretty majestic. There's some pictures I found, probably doesn't give it justice at all, but some pictures I found online of people trying to kind of describe, kind of what this city looks like, gold and shiny with the walls and all. So there you go. Try to start kind of making a mental picture of this actual city that's up there. Verse 15, the angel who talked to me held in his hand a gold measuring stick to measure the city, its gates and its wall. When he measured it, he found it was a square as wide as it was long. In fact, its length and width and height were each 1,400 miles. So that's interesting. The 1,400 miles is translated from the actual measurement that John used in his time. So we get an actual physical kind of dimensions of this city. It says, verse 17, he measured the walls and found them to be 216 feet thick, according to the human standard used by the angel. So here's some pictures to kind of give you a ballpark what 1,400 miles length and width kind of is. You could see it's pretty much the entire United States of America, kind of that length. So this is a pretty big city that is up there. And that's just the foundation of it. It says it also goes at high 1,400 miles. So there's a cool picture of, I found a line of a globe with this cube on it to scale for what a 1,400 mile height would be. There's a picture on the right there as well of kind of what it would look from a profile view. So this is all to scale to kind of give you a picture of how big this city is. Has as a cube there, but in my research, I also saw a theory that it could also be a pyramid, because the base of a pyramid is also a square, 1,400 miles, it could be 1,400 miles length and width, be a square, and the height of the pyramid could be 1,400 miles. I thought that was kind of interesting, where the pyramid's built after this model city up in heaven, way back then, before the flood. I don't know. Maybe it might work. Is God at the top of the pyramid? I don't know. So all cool things to ponder. But what we get from Revelation 21 is that there is a city up there. Okay, heaven is not just you're bouncing around in the clouds. Actually, scripturally, it doesn't even describe nowhere near that. You're not bouncing around in the clouds at all. It actually describes a physical city, describes greenery and all that, which I will get to in a minute. So hopefully this start building a picture in your mind of this actual real place that's up there that you should long for and will be in one day. Here's another cool picture, above the earth, heaven kind of being up there, an actual location where we will go to and live after we die, after our judgment. Verse 18, More description. The wall was made of jasper, and the city was pure gold. That's cool. As clear as glass. The wall of the city was built on foundation stones and laid with 12 precious stones: jasper, sapphire, agate, emerald, onyx, carnelian, chrysolite, beryl, topaz, chrysoprase, jacinth, and amethyst. I need another sip of water. My goodness. So, very descriptive. Okay, John is looking at an actual thing here. He's looking at an actual city up there coming out of heaven. So it's very descriptive, even to the actual stones that this city is laid with. So the place really does, it seems real, and there you go. It's not some fantasy. John is seeing an actual measurable physical place in heaven as a city of pure gold. He says that 12 gates were made of pearls, each from a single pearl, and the main street is pure gold, as clear as glass. I am going to give you more reading out of the vision of Paul, because so Revelation was from John. In the vision of Paul, the Apostle Paul, he also sees the city, and he describes it exactly the way John sees it when Paul goes up to the third heaven. And there's a lot of near-death experience. I'll share one in particular, but there's a lot out there that you can hear on that Heaven Awaits channel, that people have seen this city. They've never been able to enter the city. They're always outside of it, probably because once you enter, there ain't no coming out of it. But they see the walls. Some near-death experience, they go right up to the wall, right up to the gate of the city, but they don't go in before they're told that they have to come back. So yeah, I do believe there is a real city that's up there in heaven. Verse 22, I saw no temple in the city, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple, and the city has no need of sun or moon, for the glory of God illuminates the city. That's cool. It's bright just from God's light, and the Lamb is its light. God's light is the Lamb, Jesus. The nations will walk in its light, and the kings of the world will enter the city in all their glory. Its gates will never be closed at the end of the day, because there is no night there. And all the nations will bring their glory and honor into the city. Nothing evil will be allowed to enter, nor anyone who practices shameful idolatry and dishonesty, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. So, not everybody is allowed in this city. There is a list in the Lamb's book of life of who is allowed to enter. Yes, you have to have a reservation to enter into the city. Now, Jesus has paid the reservation for you. He's made the reservation for you. All you got to do is accept it. You can have a reservation at a restaurant, and if you never accept the reservation, you miss it, right? Same with this promise. Just because the reservation was made for you on the cross, you still have to accept the reservation on your behalf. And that's found in the Lamb's Book of Life, an actual book with your name written on it. And if you reject Christ, Scripture tells us that your name is blotted off the reservation list, and you will not be allowed to enter into this glorious city that we're reading about. So, stressing the importance of following Christ. Chapter 22. The description kind of goes into chapter 22 a little bit, a few verses, so go ahead and read it. Verse 1 says, the angel showed me a river with the water of life, clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb. It flowed down the center of the main street. On each side of the river grew a tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, with a fresh crop each month. These leaves were used for medicine to heal the nation. So that's interesting. So there is a river that goes through this city, the river of life. Seems like you can drink from it. The trees rooted into it produce crops that can be used for medicine and healing. And we'll probably reference that back when we get into talk about the millennium, the 1,000-year reign of Christ down here on earth. when this city comes down. But the city is up there, because when it comes down out of heaven. So this does already exist, and it is up there. And if you go to heaven, you will see this river. And you'll see in the vision of Paul, there's actually multiple rivers. There's the river of life, and he also saw other rivers that I'll let you read it. I won't, no spoiler here. Okay, so cool. The city in heaven. I want to now talk about outer darkness, which is this place that Jesus described. Here's 3 verses found in the book of Matthew, where Jesus described this place known as outer darkness. In chapter 8, verse 12, he said, many Israelites, those for whom the kingdom was prepared, will be thrown into outer darkness, and there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I want you to notice every time he mentions this place, outer darkness, there's this weeping and gnashing of teeth associated with it. In the parable of the great feast in chapter 22, he's kind of telling this story of this great feast that this king put forth. And he said how the king said to his aides, to a man who was not on the reservation list, not in the book of life per se, like we just talked about, that he was told to bind his hands and feet and throw him into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So almost seems like if you don't make that reservation into the city or into the Lamb's Book of Life, that you are thrown out to this place known as outer darkness. Now I'm going to show you in a minute that this place seems to be different from hell. That's a different place. So we got heaven, we'll talk about paradise, and we got outer darkness, and then we got hell, which we'll talk about in a minute. In Matthew 25, in the parable of the 3 servants, same deal, right? Somebody who wasn't on the reservation list, they were told about him, throw the useless servant into outer darkness, where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. So here's 3 examples of where Jesus mentions this place in his teaching known as outer darkness. So I think that's enough to say that there is a place known as outer darkness. What we know about it is that those who go there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. Doesn't really sound like a happy place. So we'll talk about that. For our third issue of discussion, we'll talk about outer darkness. Okay, now I want to get into the underworld, hell. So different from outer darkness, where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. In Luke 16, continuing the story of Lazarus, after Lazarus died and is taken by the angels to a place known as paradise, another place, the rich man, if you remember from the story, he also died, and Jesus said he was taken to the place of the dead, another place. And this place that man was taken to, it says that there he was in torment. He saw Abraham in the far distance with Lazarus at his side, so that's interesting. Remember, Lazarus was taken to a place known as paradise. So from this place where this man went, this place of the dead, he can actually see paradise and see Lazarus there and Abraham. The story goes, he shouted to them, "Father Abraham, have some pity. Send Lazarus here to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue. I am in anguish in these flames." So you can see there's a distinguishing here between outer darkness. Didn't seem like there was outer darkness or there wasn't flames in outer darkness. There was weeping and gnashing of teeth. Over here, where this man is at, there's flames and it's hot. And it's hot because he's asking for Lazarus to come and cool him, tip of his finger in water just to cool him. So the man's in agony and he's in a hot place. In the NIV and ESV version, Place of the Dead, it goes out and gives it an actual name, the name Hades, which was a Greek name for this place known as the underworld, the place of the dead. So what is this Hades? The Jews call the place Sheol. In the Old Testament, Sheol basically, or Hades, is this subterranean underworld where the souls of the dead go after they die. So it's below the ground we're standing on. A lot of scripture to support this. You see in Psalm 55, you go down to Sheol. Psalm 86, the depth of Sheol, indicating it's below us. This one's interesting. Amos 9:2 indicates that you can actually dig into Sheol. So it's not this mythical place somewhere. You can actually dig into it. It is below the floor that we are standing on. And I'm going to show you a video when we meet up about, let me not spoil it. It's really good. It's about a digging that happens and good evidence that there is something literally under the ground below us, known as Sheol and hell, that this place is real. So I'll show you guys that when we meet. Go down to Sheol. Again, Sheol is beneath. So there's a lot of scriptural backing to this place being under our feet, under the ground. It's an actual place below where there's a lot of backing of heaven being above us. Hell or Sheol or Hades is below us. Hell is kind of a Christian term that we have kind of come up with to describe the bad place, right? I think as Christians, we've kind of incorporated everything into hell, like outer darkness or Sheol or Gehenna, or the lake of fire. We've kind of all said, oh, that's hell, But it's different places, all kind of summed up under this term that we've given it as hell. Continuing with Luke 16, Abraham actually responds. So there's a communication that can happen between paradise and this place Sheol or Hades. He says to the man that's down there, he says, son, remember that during your lifetime you had everything you wanted and Lazarus had nothing? So now he's here being comforted and you're in anguish. And besides, there is a great chasm separating us. No one can cross over to you from here and no one can cross over to us from there. I'm going to share a near-death experience. I have to find it. Let's see, maybe I'll find it and put it in the comments for this lecture. If not, I'll find it before we meet on Wednesday and share it with you guys. But it's a great testimony. In a nutshell, is this man, he was kind of a believer, but not really. He hadn't really fully dedicated his life to the Lord. He kind of was a man of wealth. Anyways, he describes his experience where he died. And he describes vividly how he saw himself. He was outside of his body. He saw his body in the car where he died. He watched himself. And then he was taken to what seems to be paradise. He said he was taken to a place that was beautiful and green. The grass was very green. There was flowers. It was beautiful. He described it as what you would think if you think about paradise. But then in paradise, he was led to this big pit, a big dark pit that went down, and it was dark, and he felt like he was getting thrown into this pit, and there was voices and a creature down there, and it was calling for him, and he felt like that was his destiny, like he was going down into this pit, and it was a huge chasm between where he was in paradise and that dark pit that was down there. He then asked, going back right before he died, with his final breath, he had said, God, please save me. Those were his final words right before he died. Well, while he's on the other side looking down this pit from paradise, he said these two angels came and saved him right before he fell down into the pit. And they took him from paradise up. And they went up, and he found himself outside, flying outside this city, like the city described in Revelation 21. And he can see over the wall into the city, and he describes seeing different things. He asked about this one place, and he was told it was for the babies that die, the kids that die, which touched me, thinking about Zadie, and And then he saw Jesus, but he couldn't go up to Jesus. He recognized there was Jesus. He wanted to run to him, but he couldn't. And he knew that he had to go back. He didn't want to come back. And he felt himself falling back. He fell back in his body. Long story short, he was dead for 11 hours. That man was dead for 11 hours, and they brought him back. And now he's gone, and he has shared this story. His faith is strong. He's a follower, devout follower of Christ now. It's a great story. I'm going to try to find it and post the link here. If not, for sure, I'll bring it on when we meet up for our discussion, and I'll play the clip of his near-death experience from it. Really cool story that brings all these places of the dead to life. In his story, you hear paradise, you hear Sheol, or the subterranean world. You see the city in heaven. The only place he didn't really describe was outer darkness. He didn't see that. But it's a good testimony that I'd like to share with you guys. So be looking for that. Okay, let's talk about Gehenna, the other place that we kind of have wrapped into hell. So in Hebrew, it's called Gehenna. In the Greek, it's a place called Tartarus. So Tartarus is apart from Sheol. They're both below, but Tartarus was more like a prison. Same thing, like Gehenna is kind of like a prison where you got the underworld, you got Sheol down there, but then there's also this prison. Peter, in his second letter, describes a place where God did not even spare angels who sinned, but threw them into hell. And he talks about where these angels got thrown. It was gloomy pits of darkness, and there they were being held until the day of judgment. The book of Enoch, this extra biblical text, describes the angels Peter's talking about before the flood, these 200 watchers that left their mandate and were sentenced to this prison below until the end. They're in prison down there. So its location in reference to Sheol, I'm not sure. We can talk about that when we meet. It sounds like two different places, but kind of in the same area, kind of co-located. Maybe it's a prison within Sheol where these angels are kept. So we can talk about that. And if you do any research and find anything on any of this that I'm talking about, please bring it to the discussion. We're all learning in this on these different places of the dead. All right, and the last one I want to talk about is the lake of fire. So in Revelation chapter 21, we just read about the second death. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, how there's fiery lake of burning sulfur, and this is the second death. In the book of Matthew, Jesus kind of describes in verse 28 of the 10th chapter how he's telling you, like, don't be afraid of those who want to kill your body. Like, that's nothing, right? They can't touch your soul. But fear only God who can destroy both soul and body in hell. So there seems to be like this lake of fire, lake of burning sulfur, where your soul can actually be destroyed. Maybe that's why it's called the second death. The first death being for your body when you die. And if you go to this lake, maybe the second death is the death of your soul. Reference to that eternal fire, Jesus also in Matthew 25, right, said that there's an eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. So we see the why God created such a place that would destroy a soul, that would destroy a spirit. He created it because of the devil and his demons. Maybe this is the only way that they could be destroyed is in this fire. It's the only thing that can destroy a soul. We know, as we learned last week, when you die, your soul lives on. Your body may die, but your soul continues. It doesn't die. Satan lives on, right? Demons live on. We talk a little bit about demons and how they're the disembodied spirits of Nephilim and all that. But they live on. It says in scriptures they wander around, and when they leave a body, they go and they wander around looking for another body. The demons can't be killed. So perhaps God created this lake of fire as the one place where spirits can actually be killed. And you'll see in the end, in Revelation 20, that Satan, destiny, he will be thrown into this lake of fire. And this is where he will be destroyed, him and his demons. What's sad to me, though, is that it also says, that if you're not found in the book of life, your destiny is also in this lake of fire with the devil and his demons. So that's kind of heartbreaking to me, to think of people who just outright, hate God and reject Christ, don't want anything to do with him. The alternative is death for your soul in this lake of fire. It's heartbreaking. It really is. And I don't want anybody to go through that. I don't care who they are. Okay, so in conclusion, the different places of the dead. Paradise, I didn't have a slide for it. The only thing we only find in scripture on paradise is when Jesus told the man on the cross that today you will be with me in paradise. And also in that Luke chapter 16, that Lazarus, when he dies, the angels first take him to paradise. So from that, I gather, paradise, maybe that's the place where we go during our glorification process, the first place we go when we die, if we're just, right? Notice the other man did not go to paradise. He went down below. So paradise seems to be the place you're taken if you belong to Christ, like he said to the man on the cross. Today you will be with me in paradise. We talked about heaven, about the actual city. Is paradise and heaven co-located? I don't know. Is heaven in paradise? I don't know. We can talk more about that when we meet. There's some good extra biblical texts like Book of Enoch and the vision of Paul that describe paradise. Ties paradise to the Book of Enoch, ties paradise to the Garden of Eden. So I don't know. Maybe we actually go back to the Garden of Eden after we die. We could talk about that if you guys want when we meet up. Outer darkness, we talked a little bit about that. It seems to be in Jesus' parable, and I know I just gave you snippets of those parables. I recommend you go and you read those parables in its entirety. To summarize it, there was people who they seemed to be believers. They were religious. They believed in God. But one of the scariest verses in the Bible is when Jesus says, they're knocking and he says to them, get away from me. I never knew you. They believed in him. They were religious. They claimed to follow him. But when they come to Jesus, he says, I don't know you. Get away from me. I never know you. Take them out to outer darkness where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. So outer darkness, I think, as we saw in this lecture, it seems to be different from hell as a different spot. But maybe it's for those who maybe were religious, maybe believe God existed, but just didn't really dedicate themselves to him. Maybe really didn't follow him. It kind of reminds me, there's nowhere in scripture I couldn't find anything on purgatory, if you've heard about that. It goes back to Catholic tradition, a place known as purgatory, where the religious Catholic, when you die, you don't go straight to heaven, you go to a place known as purgatory. And it kind of, the way purgatory is described, if you want to read about it, just do a Google search on purgatory, or go to look up the Catholic Catechism, and it's got something on purgatory there. Again, I didn't bring it up in this lecture because it's found nowhere in scripture. That purgatory is not anywhere in the canon, unlike these others. So that's why I didn't even bring it up. But if you want to talk about it, we can as well. I read about it. Again, I didn't bring it up because it's not in scripture, but the one that I associated it with the most, it seems to match with outer darkness the most. Not so much hell. It seems to be separate from hell, but there's also a suffering and a weeping and a gnashing of teeth in purgatory. So In my opinion, if there's any truth to the purgatory thing, I would probably put purgatory and outer darkness in the same category, or perhaps they are the same exact place. Then Sheol, those who completely reject Christ's sacrifice for them, and they go to pay for their sins and await for the judgment day at the end of the age. This is the ones that Tartarus takes you, and he takes you down to Sheol, as we saw in last week. And there you wait. You wait for the final judgment in agony, like that man in Luke 16. Talked about Gehenna, how maybe that's a prison within hell for the fallen angels. It's described as that's where the angels are locked up. Now we know it's not, Satan's not down there, because Peter in his same 2 letters say that Satan roars around like a lion, feeding on anything he can. He's free. His fallen angels, his 1/3 are free. They're on earth. They're down here. They're Paul says he's the prince of the air. He's not down there in this Gehenna prison. Either are his fallen angels. They are here with us on this earth, and they are, until we get to, Armageddon and after the millennium. It seems that they're just roaming around waging war. And after we get through this death series, we'll talk about that war in heaven. So who are these angels that are imprisoned in Gehenna? Could it be those 200 watchers found in the book of Enoch from before the flood? So if you want to talk about that, bring it up. We can talk about that as well. I know Nick has mentioned that before. And then lastly, the lake of fire being the second death, the death for the soul. So that question in red is, I think, a question that every human being needs to ask themselves. Where am I going? I think we're all in agreement that there's something after death. So the big question that we should all be concerned with in our heart is, where am I going after I leave this tent, after I leave this body? So there's a summary of our discussion for this week. Look forward to seeing you guys there. The homework before then, go back into the vision of Paul. Paragraph 19 through 33 basically describes all these places. Paul is taken on a journey after he sees all those judgments that we read about last week. He's actually taken on a journey to these different places. I'm going to look for that near-death experience that I told you guys about, and I'll also share some other extra biblical text, like from the book of Enoch, that also describes these places when we meet in person. So, but for homework, go back into the vision of Paul, since you guys have that already, and keep on reading past paragraph 19. See you guys in a few days for our discussion. God bless.